This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Lord Jason of House Ross, Lady Amanda of House Richardson, Lord Adam, the young bull of House Parker, Sir Peter of House Whittingham, the ghost of Harrenhal, a bannerman has no name, Lord Thanos of House Titan, Lord Nelson of the Long Isle, the mother of cats, Sir Joshua of House Ross, Lady Kendall of House Taylor, Sir Ryan of House Lothstrom, Lady Liz of House Hendricks, Lord Hunter the Foul-Mouthed, Captain of the Guard, Sir Dustin the Rooster Knight, Captain of the Guard, Sir Ron of House Golson, Captain of the Guard.
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Butt Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Welcome to Season 8, Episode 6, Predictions and Follow-Up Friday.
Wow. It's the last time we'll ever say that in terms of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, right, yeah. It's...
In terms of...
Or is it?
Or is it? Yeah, so... Man, Sir Ezra, how are you doing, man?
Dude, doing okay. Actually, it's nice to be podcasting again and talking about Game of Thrones. I've had kind of a busy, crazy week, but it's good. I mean, the weather's been great, so...
Hey, man, right there with you. Ezra and I were sitting down to record, and then had a big leak in that, and some water issues there, and I had to run out and start bucking the water. That hot tub we got, remember I mentioned a little while ago.
Yeah.
It's got a little leak in it, so guess I'm just gonna buy a new one.
Yeah.
So
you were pulling a whole what are the drowned priest situation out there? Where you guys just too many.
Anyway, it's squared away there. But yeah, so now let's talk some Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 6. Maybe it's just called The End. Maybe that's what the episode will be called, or Finally, for those of you who are been petitioning against this season. So we'll find out. But woo! Well, Season 8, Episode 6, the finale is here. Things do not look good for any of the inhabitants of King's Landing, the about 30 that I'm sure are remaining.
Yeah.
But we've got a ton of Ravens to get through. We have some trivia and some other things to talk about. But yeah, it's I'm excited, and let's dive right into it. So, Sir Ezra, trivia. Last week, the question was, who supplies the mother of dragons with her coffee? Starbucks is what we were accepting. I think that's what most people were putting. Turns out it may not have actually been Starbucks. It may have been some sort of local coffee shop. But we would have accepted any answer. All you have to do is respond in the trivia section on the Facebook group, and you get entered in for our Funko Pop giveaway. And this week's winner is Lord Amy Gauss, I'm guessing is how she pronounces her last name. And also, we have a raven from her later that we found, because we've been getting about like 400 ravens a week. So we've been trying to sift through as many of those as we possibly can. And we chose her as our trivia winner. And then Sir Ezra said, hey, she also sent a raven. So, shout out to her. All you got to do, Lady Amy, is shoot us a message on our Facebook page. It'll hit our inbox, and then we can hook you up, or an email, either way, and we can start getting you sent out a Funko Pop as our giveaway. Trivia question for next week, which I guess is kind of going to be, it's the end of the series. We'll be talking about the end of the series, and so go ahead and answer this question. What color is the horse that Arya rides out on? So that's obviously this episode, and so let us know.
And here's the thing. I want you to be as, specific as possible, okay, on the color of the horse. Mm-hmm. All right, so take that how you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
all right.
All right, one last thing before we get going here. We keep getting people saying, hey, where can we follow you on social media? You can follow me on pretty much anywhere on the internet at Super Gains Bros.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at womprat_2m.
Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and dive into these Ravens. We got a lot here. We have some negative ones. We've been told that we don't read negative Ravens, but
yeah,
to be fair, Sir Ezra, we don't actually get that many negative Ravens.
No, we don't. And as a matter of fact, we have a lot to read through, and most of them are positive.
Mm-hmm.
So we're throwing those in the doc, and we have actually tried to seek out some that critique the show. I think we read a couple last week.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this week I have a CNN article that I just want to reference. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I have a few points that were made by a writer at CNN
mm-hmm.
that I thought would be interesting for the group to discuss, and I'll post the links in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
So, do you want to start with those, or do you want to start with? Can I start with the CNN article real quick?
Go ahead and start with the CNN article.
Okay. Because I think this is interesting. So there's this petition going around. More than 350,000 people want Game of Thrones. They want the final season to be remade. Okay, Sir Matt, let's see, it's a change.org petition titled Remake Game of Thrones Season 8 with competent writers. So there it is. If we've never said anything, if we've never pushed anything that was anti-Season 8, here it is. 350,000 signatures already. They're trying to get up to 500 signatures. So
wow.
There we go. Let's see. They talk about let's see, quote, showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss have proven themselves to be woefully incompetent writers when they have no source material, i.e. the books, to fall back on, the petition reads. Quote, this series deserves a final season that makes sense. Whoa, then they're basically the goal of this is to kind of push HBO to make that happen.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen, Sir Matt. I don't think HBO is going to come out and remake the season, or are they in this last episode?
They could.
Where's the reset button?
It's possible Brand might hit that reset button.
That's right.
Yeah, here's my thing is even if the finale is completely disappointing. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, it's a TV show and a book series, and I don't know. People root for bad things all the time, right? Before Sir Ezra and I, when we were looking at that article a little bit, and I was thinking, I mean, I don't want to start angering some people from certain cities here, but I mean, hey, Sir Ezra, you and I are from Ohio, and the last time the city of Cleveland won a championship was back in like the 1950s, and people keep rooting for that city for a long time, and then you finally won one. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since the 90s, and it's the largest sports team in the world, and people root for it every year. People from Michigan think they're going to beat Ohio State. Yeah, that ain't going to happen. So I mean, no, I'm just joking. I think it is going to happen this year, but still,
Right.
So I mean, we've invested a lot of time. Fortunately, we're still in a situation where the books could come out and be infinitely, and probably will be infinitely better. I've been thinking about it too a little bit, and I definitely do think I don't think people are actually upset with some of our Ravens are going to talk about this. I don't think people are necessarily upset with how the season's going. It's just that there hasn't been enough context to explain some of the decisions they've chosen, because they chose to do a short season. It's not. I think it's actually more. I think it really goes back to season 7 and the choices they made there, which makes season 8 feel so much more rushed. Because when I go back into season 7, not a lot really happens. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about how much time Jon and Dany spend on Dragonstone deciding what they want to do. And I mean, a lot of those episodes just feel like, okay, here's Arya and Sansa again in Winterfell. I mean, season 7 is remarkably slow for what takes place. And then because of that, season 8 feels like a sprint. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where the real issue is that season 7 is pretty slow, and you could have started tying that stuff in. I mean, you have to get character to point A to point B, and I get all that.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think people would have been. I don't think people would be upset that Arya kills the Night King. There was some hinting at it, and we've talked about that, but it wasn't nearly as much as we thought we'd gotten with Jon. So that decision, I think, is rubbing a lot of people the long way because, that seems like a 180. Daenerys, and we're going to talk about this later in today's episode, I think there's plenty of arguments to show why Daenerys would kind of freak out in that moment. But it to a lot of people, it feels like it's just a complete 180. And I get it. And I get it because the way it's kind of executed this season is they needed a little more. They need a little more context to show, because we've seen Daenerys over time with like when she made the decision to torch Sam's brother and Sam's dad, even against the advice of Tyrion.
Right.
So I mean, there are definitely moments. She burns Mir Mazdul at the very beginning. She's okay with her brother dying, and somebody references that in one of our Ravens.
She also the masters, right? She has them kind of.
Yes, she does. She has them butchered,
even the ones
right there. Yeah. As soon as she gets her Unsullied Army, she says, "Kill all the masters." So it's not like
It's not like you could argue that they're not innocent. You could argue they weren't innocent, so that's why that.
Right, but I definitely see the argument of people who are like, "Whoa, this feels rushed," because you show Cersei a certain way. And so we start Cersei's the enemy, and then we think, oh, Jon and Daenerys are going to get together, it's going to be fine, and their relationship and the forcing them to go apart, which I think is what the show writers, regardless of whether they're doing a good job or not, I think that's what, just in watching it and trying to think of the choices they're making, that's what I think there's the direction they were probably trying to go. And because there wasn't a ton of context of that Jon-Dany relationship, we really only see them hook up once, and then we just see them kind of embrace here and there. And even, I mean, by episode 2, Jon is awkward with Dany because he now knows the truth of his parentage. And so it's like, well, we just saw them finally get together,
right,
2 episodes ago. If you were just streaming this and you weren't waiting 2 years like we were. So for those of you who just got into the series, so I definitely see how it feels really sudden for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And let me read one more here, just because I have another. I think this author or this writer brings up a lot of, it's another perspective that maybe I watch a TV show and I just enjoy it. I'm like, oh, it was cool action. That was a cool fight scene. These things. So these other layers that are like super deep and sophisticated, I'll leave it to people like this writer. I think her name is Kate Maltby.
Okay.
Kate Maltby.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry
Sounds
if
great.
I butchered that. Yeah, from CNN, so sorry if I butchered that. But she's kind of making the argument here. The title of this is Why I'm Furious About and Obsessed with Game of Thrones, and just talks about that we've all been obsessed with it. Talks about the viewership. I think there's some 46 million people who tuned in, watched, who watch Game of Thrones. There was something like 17 or I don't know how many millions that tuned, like some record for this past Sunday, right? It's some record for number of streams or watches that on that Sunday. Let's see. She says here, there's plenty to be angry about. The storylines of women and non-white characters have collapsed into cliche. Mm-hmm. So here we go.
I can see that. No, I can certainly see that.
Yeah, so Benioff and Weiss seem to have learned their lesson when the rape of a major character, Sansa Stark, was framed foremost as a traumatic experience for the man forced to watch it. As Vanity Fair's Joanne Robertson put it, quote, "The last thing we needed was to have a powerful young woman brought low in order for a male character to find redemption," end quote. So there's that. I saw a lot of that going around last season.
I would not argue against that. I think you could. That's definitely something you could take out of that scene.
Yeah. So those are the little things. The way you set up stuff and the way you execute things. Again, based on point of view, and that's been something that I wondered how that's taken into account with the writers, because everything is from a certain character's point of view, the way that they're witnessing it. And I thought of that scene, and I wondered, in the books,
just the character in the books, it's probably not even going to go close to that.
Yeah. I mean, there is. It's actually. What is her name? Jane Poole, right?
Right. Yeah. Sansa's not even there. Like, and she's not even.
No,
yeah.
and it's supposed to be Arya, and it's
a whole
it's
big
Jane Poole.
a ton of other stuff for the
Yeah, but I think the perspective, I think the point of view is actually still from Reek,
right
at the time,
right, yeah, Reek.
So
Theon.
So it seems like they kept the same point of view based on what happens in the books. I had to go back and look, but I thought that was kind of how that went down in the books. Anyways, so yeah, so there's that. Let's see. Just goes on to talk about Missandei, the former slave, might have had a real story arc of her own, but first she inhabited a classic black best friend trope, and then she became a plot device to spur a white protagonist's revenge, as Sansa to Theon Greyjoy, so Missandei to Daenerys. So there's some other frustrations in people who are looking at this. When I saw her killed, I'll just be honest with you. I mean, we do those initial reactions. I was just like, it was just the love between Grey Worm and she, and I was like, oh my gosh, man, they were just getting to a point where they thought about going to
right.
Back to her country. Her people were peaceful, his people are not, and I was like, we kept saying, we ended the episode with, Grey Worm is pissed, and so that was what I was taking away from it. I didn't even notice things like this. So when these come to our attention, we'll point them out, and they're interesting points. I'm glad I'm not writing the show.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. Although, you know what? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are like, I wish you guys were writing the show, because we
got some pretty cool ideas.
I've seen a lot of people say things along the lines of like, wow, that when the fan fiction guys on Reddit write better theories than these guys making millions of dollars. But so no, well, yeah, I think.
Go ahead, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. This season is not how I think anyone expected it to go.
Yeah.
But we still have one episode left. I'm still waiting to see. We talk about you and I have talked about Star Wars a lot. I think if you go back to the prequel trilogy, I think episode 2 is easily the worst movie. But I think once you've seen Star Wars episode 1, 2, and 3 being a much better movie than 2 makes the whole picture not look as bad. So it's like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I'm still holding out. We don't know what's going to happen in this next episode. So if we see it and suddenly it all clicks and makes sense, then okay.
What if it does? What if it does?
If it doesn't, and then I can view it again and view it with the entire series and see, okay, now that I can view the whole picture, if it's still really bad and it still kind of tarnishes the rest, then okay, well, I'll say that. But I'm still waiting to pass judgment. I've said that episode 4, I think, is easily my least favorite episode of Game of Thrones. I would actually probably go as far as to say it's a pretty bad episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think 5 was awesome.
Yeah.
It wasn't at all how we thought it would go. I can see why people think the bells is kind of weird. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm still waiting on that last episode to see the whole picture. But to those of you that are really upset by this season, I completely understand why.
Yes, Sir Matt, let me put it to you like this, and let me remind folks at the top of the show here. So, Sir Matt, the Bud Knight, and Sir Ezra, the Watchful, are just a couple of hedge knights. And I thought about this when I was reading this. I'm like, here we have a maester over at the Citadel. Wow. Okay, actually, she's a woman, so she wouldn't be over at the Citadel. She might be the Sphinx, right?
She might be the Sphinx. I was about to say, Illyria Sand is a woman who is at the Citadel.
Yeah. So maybe that's what's going on. But someone who's thought about this and writes articles for CNN at this high level, brings these interesting points, things that we haven't thought about. Because you and I feel like, well, at least me, anyways, I watch these things and I love the cinematography. I love seeing people in armor and the sword fighting and things like that, dragons flying around. those are the things that really get me. And the story has been great, and I will say that it hasn't gone the way I thought it was going to go either. And if you were to throw an extra season in between this and really stretch it out and develop this ending a little bit more, I think maybe it would be a little bit it would sit a little bit better with folks. But I think they're just out of time, and I just don't think that they.
Well, this is
the nature of not having the source material. I'm sorry, they did not set out to write this themselves.
They did. Well, and that's not the only issue, though, is go look at almost any large television show's final seasons. More often than not, they're pretty disappointing because a lot of times what happens is, especially in a show like Game of Thrones, I would say half this cast, I mean, for starters, most of these people were kids. They didn't really have any acting experience, and it's hard to get people's schedules together. It's hard to get people get everything coordinated.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, we talked about the Battle of Winterfell, 55 nights. Watch that episode. How much is it? How much of that episode has the characters who we know are involved in a lot of other large productions in it? How much of Sansa is actually in that episode? Go look at the minute time. It's not very much. Because Sophie Turner's also in X-Men, and you have a lot of these actors that are now bigger stars and they're involved in more projects. They're also making a lot more money. I mean, think about how much money Liana Hattie's making this season, and how much is she actually in it? She's not in screen time. She's actually not in this season very much. I did see a meme where somebody said that she has this season is like literally anyone's perfect job, because like 90% of her scenes are just staring out a window drinking wine, and it's like everyone's dream job to get paid millions of dollars to just drink wine and stare out a window. So that's funny. Yeah, so I mean that's something you have to think of. You can look at a ton of shows. The Big Bang Theory, I think didn't really watch it, but I've seen it stuff in the news that they decided to end it because those characters, the actors are making so much money per episode, because they're bigger stars now, and so that's I think Friends was like that. That's what happens to a lot of shows is you have these characters who are involved in bigger projects and other shows. So it's probably hard coordinating everyone. So I don't know if they would have been able to pull off another 10 episode season.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, because we were talking like that. Our joke is at the end of this, there's the massive cliffhanger, and Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones will continue. Well, what does that mean? Is it actually just gonna continue? That we'll have that we won't write another season or another book, but it will continue, or is there another season coming out? We just kind of joked before we started the show that maybe it's not over. So, anyways. All right, well, yeah, I don't know. I wanted to point those. I'll post those articles, and again, Kate, I'm sorry for butchering your name. If you don't know, I butcher names. It's what I do. It's my job here. I'm paid to do that. So, Missandei, Missandei,
right?
Missandei, whatever you want to call her. All right, I butcher names. All right, let's move on to some Ravens here. Let's get the people's thoughts.
All right, we have Sir Jose Rodriguez. I think we've read a Raven from him before. Hey guys, love the podcast. Been on board for only 2 weeks. Okay, maybe not. I was listening to last night's podcast and the conversation about Varys taking off his rings. It was also odd to me. But then I realized Varys from the show, and he's always talked about how he's come from nothing. To my understanding, he knew he was going to die and died as a humble, poor man for the realm. That's what I see him taking his rings off, stripped from the riches and he gathered and died for the greater good. Thanks, guys. Great podcast. Yeah, I think that's certainly one explanation for it. I'm sure they probably explained it in the after the show. I've talked about this before. I try to avoid those. I don't really like seeing a lot of the production side of it because Game of Thrones to me is so big and so vast that, especially we're deep book readers, that I try to stay away as far away from that production stuff because I like to keep the suspense, of belief, right? I'm thinking of the theater term. I'm losing it. reality? You like suspend your belief of reality because you're engaging in things that aren't true.
Sure.
But so I'm sure they probably explained it there. I don't really watch that stuff, but I think that certainly is one explanation for it. But they gave it. He did it so quickly that it didn't seem calculated. It seemed like he was in a rush. He was in a rush to do it. If he knew they were coming at that moment, I think he would have done it. He would have already been done. Varys seems like the kind of character who would just be sitting there, with nothing else going on, waiting for that moment.
Yeah. I do like the idea as you
I
say
do as well.
That the idea is he came from nothing, and so he has, no riches on him at the end, and just it's kind of a neat way to go. Actually, makes me like Varys more if that's what this is about. It also, if he does have some crazy twist plot or some contingency plan going into the next episode, that'll also make me like him even more. So, okay, moving on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Deb McLean, Lady Deb. Hi guys, found your podcast literally a month ago and love it. Anyway, just wanted to comment. Everyone is saying Jon will kill Dany next. Arya will kill Dany next. Everyone seems certain Dany will die in the finale. So here's my question. What about her dragon? He's not going to go quietly into the night, which is no longer dark and full of terrors. If they kill his mother, you can't poison him. He's too big. There are no scorpion weapons left, and a fire probably feels like a massage and facial to him. So just wondering. By the way, is this a raven? It looks like Facebook Messenger. Anyway, love the podcast. Until the sun rises in the west, I am Diva Deb of the house. I am no lady. That's not me. First of all, yes, you can message us either on the Facebook page, which goes into an inbox, or on our email, btkcast@gmail.com, which I guess, by the way, somebody else sent us a raven and said, do you guys know that was a serial killer? I didn't until somebody had mentioned.
What?
I guess there's a BTK serial killer at some point. I think it was. I looked it. I looked it up once. I think it was in England. So anyway, I had to look it up. I didn't know anything about it, but that's what we chose. So anyway, yes, to your original question, yes. What will happen with Drogon if Dany dies in the finale? My guess is he just kind of flies off, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, in the books, when another Targaryen has killed when Targaryens fight or have killed each other and things, those dragons tend to go away or go away for a cycle, and then they come back, and another, younger Targaryen would claim that dragon, because the dragons seem to live for quite some time. So if it is that Jon will take the throne and he has to kill Dany, and then the dragon maybe just chills out, I don't know, might be distraught, who knows, maybe depends on who kills Dany. If it's Arya, well,
right.
Then
if Dany does even die.
Dragon fire, if she even dies, true.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like anyone's going to kill the dragon, though. Actually,
right.
Maybe they will. I mean, it's going to be tough to do, though. That's going to be a big deal. And if Jon is a Targaryen, then he could have kids, and his kids could maybe later claim that dragon, or hers, whatever.
Yeah. Good question. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I don't know what's going to happen to the dragon. Maybe it flies off. The way this season's going, maybe they just kind of forgot Drogon was there.
Maybe they did. Someone sent us a meme, and I can't remember who it was, and so I apologize, because we literally have over 500-600 ravens now. Who sent us that meme that said, "Well, I guess it only took one dragon," or Dany had that look on her face, and we only needed one dragon, and she torched the whole city, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, really, one dragon's all you need. So
yeah,
but yeah, I think he'll make it.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Okay, here we go. Here's a negative one. This is from let's say Sir or Lord Brandon Kozar. I don't think there's any relation to Bernie Kosar, the Cleveland Browns quarterback from back in the day.
But we'd like to know.
We would like to know. Please let us know. I'm sorry, gentlemen, but the Game of Thrones showrunners, D&D, have totally fumbled the end of Thrones. 180 just 180 degree, I think is what he means, character turns, forced actions, loose plot elements everywhere. Please don't try to rationalize what this is. All right. Call it what it is, crap. What a waste of 6 amazing seasons. So I'm guessing he thinks season 7 is not very good. D&D was down and wanted, I think it means done, was done and wanted to move on. Fine. Then pass the show off to writers who had the motivation to invest the proper time and energy. Stop trying to shine this turd. What a joke, Brandon. But hey, that's what we said. A lot of people feel that way with this season, and like I've said, I don't think so, but I'm for the people who are really upset, I completely understand why you are. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, the only thing, to Brandon here, when I think, and anyone who kind of really wants to harp on the showrunners, actually in the CNN article, that was something that was said as well. It's just that, like, when they ran out of source material, okay, now there's nothing. But the issue is, and we talked about this with a couple other podcasts where we were doing some collaborations last week, and I think about how he gave them certain elements and said, this is how the story is going to end. And they had to get those characters there. So they then have to fill in the blanks, and they don't know how all of that ties up. And I get there are some inconsistencies and things like that, but I'm trying to think. I'm not a huge I don't watch a lot of other TV shows, and I read the books. I read the book series. I'm a big book nerd. So is there another show to book series out there where they ran out of source material and the showrunners had to finish writing something that someone else had started? You know what I mean? That's completely... They kind of know, like, all right, here's the final battle, but there's 2 books worth of material.
Well, to be fair, I think a lot of comic books and a lot of comic book movies, but again, then you're only making one movie, so it's not like you're making 73 episodes, 73 hour plus episodes. But a lot of comic books, I don't think they go verbatim. We're drawing from this comic book only. They draw from a bunch of things, so they still have to kind of piece a bunch of elements together and kind of get what they want to happen.
Right, but they're doing that based off of a finished product most of the time. Is that right? Like finished comic book series,
right? But they're still, or it's but they're taking a handful of comics. Like, for example, you can look at the DC universe. Batman vs Superman draws a lot of inspiration from several different comic books that aren't entirely similar. A lot of it is you can draw from the World's Finest, which is where Batman and Superman first meet, and then you have the Dark Knight Returns, where Batman is super old and he comes back. It's heavily drawn from that, and then they end up fighting, and Batman beats Superman in that arc. But but Wonder Woman isn't involved in those, but she is in the movie. So you still have, let's get from point A to point B, do it however you want. And then they said, okay, well, let's draw from this arc. Let's draw from this arc. Let's draw from this. So it's still, you have general ideas, but let's kind of piece this together. So you still have all of the source material, and you're still somewhat writing the story on your own. I think it's pretty similar. But because you have a little bit less to work with. But when you look at these comic book movies, it's all over the place. I mean, you could draw from any comic you wanted.
Yeah, and you also, the way I look at that is you've got a finished. We have no idea what the ending of this is going to be. Like, no clue. We're still 2 books away from in the series and figuring out.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Where we're going to be. Yeah.
Real quick, and George R. R. Martin hasn't even figured out how to finish it yet. To our knowledge,
heck no.
It's taken him 6 years to figure it out.
And he does say that his writing things kind of grow. That character kind of grew on me, so I kept him around, or various things like that. And the story grows in the writing, so that's hard, right? So it's growing, and people have asked him, is he going to change the ending based on all this? And he's like, no, I'm not. I've laid down a foundation. It just would not make sense to do that, but he has this clever way in which he's going to wrap all of this up, and I just think it is an enormous task to say you had thick. I mean, 5 really thick books to pull from, and then now, they have to wrap this up on their own with nothing, and that's where people are saying they've fallen short because without the source material, they weren't able to kind of do it, but they were restricted in knowing, well, this character, what we've done up to this point, we thought we were going to have one more book to help us. It didn't land, and then now we have to figure out how to get what George told us years ago was that these characters had to get to this point, and we've been doing this through. So it's just tough because I think they really thought. I think George also said we all thought Winds of Winter was going to be out in time for them to use going into this. So you look at the first several seasons, they're really using him as a guide, and then when he's gone, I don't know. I like to remind people about that fact because I think it's a super tough position to be in. If Dave and Dan from the get-go are writing their own story and finishing it, not doing an adaptation, they might have done things. Yeah, obviously, wow, they would have been a completely different story, obviously, but I don't know. It's just tough, man. That's all.
Well, and you look at and another thing to think about is since the source material wasn't finished, there are so many characters in the books that never made it into the show that in the books, especially I think obviously the easiest one to point out is Lady Stoneheart. Lady Stoneheart drastically changes the books to the show. I mean, drastically changes. She is that important of a character. Young Griff is a massively important character in the books and would drastically alter where we're at in the show. But, so there's because possibly the books didn't get finished, they said, well, let's not go this route, and then that changes so many arcs that they would have going forward. You've got to think about that too, because you have to start weeding stuff out, and then once you've weeded stuff out that you don't want to have from the books, you're left with not a lot of story left to tell, because the story that they've actually told in this last season and this season isn't really a lot. I mean, I think when the books come out, it's going to seem so watered down. I think that the Harry Potter. Yeah. I think the Harry Potter books to movies are pretty decent adaptation of keeping about as much source material as they can, and I think the movie that suffers the most is Goblet of Fire, because the first book is really light because it's meant for a younger audience, and the audience grows as you go throughout the Harry Potter books. The third one, not really a lot happens in the third Harry Potter book. When you get to the fourth one, there's so much content that happens. I mean, by like chapter 5, so much happens. In the movie, they fly over so much because they just don't have the time. So that's something else you have to think about with the show. They just don't have the time to explain all these plot points. But then once you hit that point where they ran out of source material, it's like, well, now we have nothing left because we've already cut so much. It's not like we can go back and bring that stuff forward, because they did try to do that. Euron Greyjoy killing Balon Greyjoy in the books happens way earlier than it does in the show. Yeah. In season, they had to bring that in later in the seasons.
Right. Yeah, I know it is a. Well, so you agree it's a task and a half.
Absolutely.
I mean, really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, all the numerous amounts of characters and storylines and threads happening at the end of A Dance of Dragons and A Feast for Crows. There's just so much going on there, and then we thought we'd have Winds of Winter to guide us through. Even if you merge, like we've talked about the merging of Stannis and Jon in their character in the Battle of the Bastards. Like, I think they thought they were going to have some material for that, and I'm sure they got some guidance from George, but he can't give away everything.
Yeah, so
right?
I mean easily the thing to tell here with Dan and Dave is that, okay, they seem to be pretty good showrunners. They don't seem to be good writers. Because before they were just writing material that was given to them, and they did a really good job of depicting that. I mean, you can look at some of the episodes of the season. I mean, the Battle of Winterfell, regardless of whether it was you just got to turn the brightness up. If you just watch that as a standalone episode, it's visually, it's amazing to watch. The story element of it is where you're sitting there going, okay, what exactly is going on here? Some of this doesn't make sense. This previous episode, The Bells, it's visually stunning to watch Daenerys just torch the city, and mass chaos ensue. It may not, it doesn't, I don't think it, I definitely see why people are upset. They're like, this, to the story, this doesn't make sense, but watching it, I'm like, this is really good. There's been a lot of super cool moments this season. Jenny's song, I thought, was a really cool moment, and it was shot really well, and it really made us think everyone's gonna die this next episode. Everyone's gonna die. I thought Brienne's knighting ceremony was another scene that was just shot really cool. But again, Dan and Dave just apparently aren't just good writers. And then it really doesn't help when in the after the episode whatever that is, the breakdown, you say things like, well, Dany just kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet, because it makes you look lazy, which people are already accusing you of being.
Yeah, I see. The one thing I will say, then we'll move off of this, the long night, I understand what you say, like the elements that were kind of confusing, and they were the writers for that. In The Bells, though, that episode, I thought it was much more, I understood what was happening. I felt it was more cohesive, and I got what was happening, even if I didn't like where the story was going, and I didn't like that Dany was becoming, the Mad Queen. I still understood everything. There weren't issues that I think a lot of people saw in the long night. People had a lot of grievances with the long night, but in the Bells, I think it's more just that, why are these characters turning this way?
Right.
And you don't have that build up, as you said, or that extra season in between to kind of show her losing it or cracking over time or whatever. So I thought that The Bells was fairly well written, but maybe the long night suffered a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyways, okay. All right, we'll leave the showrunners alone, because they're getting absolutely. They direct and they write this next episode, by the way.
Well, that's gonna take a lot of people off. So.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, like it's we're finishing with them.
Okay.
Through and through. They direct it and write it.
All right, here we go. It's from Keith Trey. Hey again. For Follow-Up Friday, if you don't already have too many Ravens this week, I have a new theory. Kind of. One thing I noticed in episode 5 was that after the bells rang, you only saw Drogon the rest of the episode, and you never saw Dany's face at all. I'm hoping it was so they would not spoil her expression of horror watching her dragon burn all the innocent people in King's Landing. I've watched the episode quite a few times, trying to dissect the scenes, and whenever I got to the Bran flashback scene, it just seemed off. The dragon clearly looked like it was heading right for the Red Keep, and then it just starts burning people. It wasn't burning people on the way in the initial scene. He's talking about the Bran flashback scene from earlier when he touched the weirwood tree. And combining that with binge listening to your podcast that I have fresh in my mind, it got me thinking, do you think Bran could have warged Drogon at that moment and chose to burn those innocents to make Daenerys look like the monster in the eyes of everyone else? He has been surprisingly idle through the whole season, and I feel like it's been on purpose. My theory is that he's been scheming the whole time, quietly weaving the events leading up to this point. His intentions aren't really evil or good, they just are. I don't want to keep writing. I feel like it's already been too much, but if that sounds interesting, you guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Just finishing listening up to your Follow-Up Friday about the three-eyed crow, and it's connecting to the other and whatnot, and it just got me thinking. Either way, keep doing what you're doing. Love your podcast, good sirs. Bend the knee. Also, one thing I was hoping for this season to see Bran warg Viserion and turn him against the Night King, but that didn't happen, and I was super blown up. I was super down about it. So this might just be wishful thinking.
Well, I like this. So is this Sir Keith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this, I think yeah. So Sir Keith, this is this is kind of crazy. I think when she first takes off, it does look more like it's her intent to do the burning, to take on after the city. Like when you first see her, and I get his point is that after that, we don't really see her face anymore. I'd have to go back and watch it again just to double check that. But I feel like you saw her sitting there, the bells are ringing, and then she kind of urges her dragon to go do what he's going to do. Now, maybe she just urged her dragon to go up and take out Cersei. And as he's saying, perhaps Bran intervenes and deviates the dragon off course, and we don't see her crying on her dragon trying to stop him. That would be nuts if that happened. But I don't know. That's a lot to kind of. I keep thinking, and this is Sir Keith is in the same spot that I am. I keep thinking Bran's doing something, or something's going down, or he's warging and doing different things. But for example, we have Lady Shannon who also said, "Wild thought, but could Bran have warged into the horse to save Arya?" So warg into the dragon to destroy everybody, warg into the horse to save Arya, and then my response to her is just nothing, Brandon Stark. I mean, the answer is no, but it's a wild thought, and I keep hoping there's some crazy twist like that, but it's just not going to happen. I keep thinking, as Sir Keith said, I was hoping he would warg into the Ice Dragon or would do something cool with the Night King, and it just never happens. So, yeah, Sir Matt.
Yeah, I think we will get something with Bran this next episode. I've always thought it would be kind of cool if it ended with Bran, not like sitting there on throne or anything, but just something to do with him, because the first chapter in the book after the prologue is Bran. So our story begins with him. Even if you just watch the first episode of the show, it really begins with him. He's the one who gets pushed out of the window. He's the one who is watching Ned Stark behead some person. Behead that guy from the Night's Watch who ran away. And so I just thought it would be kind of cool if it started that way and ended that way. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to, just because Bran missed an entire season. It seems like the show has kind of not really know what to do with him. The problem is, once you give him the ability to travel in time, he becomes kind of a super weapon, and then it's hard. It's hard because once you introduce time travel to any sort of story, it really kind of messes things up, because then it becomes almost too easy for a storyteller. So
yeah, I get you. I hear that. Okay, let's move on to Lady Ashley here. She says, it looks like the final episode will have Dany murdered by Jon or Arya with Jon's face. Bittersweet ending, but I'm then hoping she ends up going back to the tent with Drogo and her son from the vision in the House of the Undying. It would be a bittersweet ending, and I will surely cry. Lady Ashley. So just, I guess, kind of a nice thought there that she would be at peace, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that would be nice to see. I don't know that we're into writing happy endings anymore, though, with Game of Thrones, or that anything's gonna be semi-poetic.
Well,
at the end here.
Remember it was a couple weeks ago when I was talking about the ending that we would all least expect would be a happy one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that would be a shocker.
At this point, that's definitely not happening. But
yeah.
Yeah, I do think.
Could you imagine though? Could you imagine next episode?
I think what's going to happen is
we're
going to get an ending. I think we're all going to get an ending we all disapprove of, and that's what will be bittersweet. Is that well, at least the Lannisters didn't win, or at least the Night King didn't win, and because everyone has their favorite that they want to sit the Iron Throne, and so then nobody gets what they want, and so that's gonna.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on here. So we have Sir Andrew Liptalk says, "Hey guys, I also wanted your opinion on the character arcs of the Hound and Jaime. Everyone seems very happy with how the Hound's story arc ended, but didn't like how Jaime's did, which confuses me, as they are basically the same. They both started off as bad, had a redemption arc, and ended with going back to the one thing that their entire lives have been focused around. The only difference is that the Hound went back to something the audience wanted him to do, killing the Mountain, while Jaime didn't. He went back to trying to save Cersei. So my question is, how can Jaime's character arc be ruined while the Hound's be fine or okay?" Sir Matt?
So I think one of the things people like about the Hound's arc is that the Hound is doing something which most people view as good. He's killing the Mountain, which we know is a bad guy. he also has that moment with Arya where it's kind of that final goodbye moment, and he tells her, "You need to get out of here because you don't want to die. I don't want you to die." So he's always been this character who's been rough around the edges, never really had anything in his life that seemed good at all, except for this relationship he's had with Arya, this almost father-daughter type relationship. And so I thought that was something that people enjoyed. And then he also goes out in a pretty epic moment. He kills his brother with fire. It's something that his life has been focused around. So I think it's more than just him killing his brother, which is the thing his life has been focused on, but also that he had that moment with Arya and his impact on her life. And the Hound has also been somewhat of a character in a way, kind of like Theon. We've seen the Hound. He left at the Battle of the Blackwater. And then he also didn't want to fight during the Battle Winterfell in the Long Night episode, where Barrington Darien has to say, "Then look at Arya," and Arya actually gives him strength. So I think that's really been his arc. Jaime, I think people don't like because we always thought Jaime would. I think a lot of people thought he would kill Cersei. Is that he would have to kill her. And
right,
he
because
didn't.
she's the ultimate villain.
Right, she's the ultimate villain. He ends up going back to her. I don't know. Maybe in the books it'll be explained a little bit more, where he's kind of comforting her in the last moment, which is kind of what he's doing here. He does still go back to Cersei. He goes back to. It's something that sometimes we see characters' emotions. But when you read the book, you get a little more of why that emotion is important. It's possible that it's. I mean, he does talk about, I want to go back to Cersei, and he has that moment with Brienne. But it's possible that in the books, when we get to read, if we had the script and we could read the script, they explain some of those emotions. It's not just Cersei; it's also Cersei and his potential child, who he's never really had good relationships with any of his children. So there could be that element in it too. It doesn't come across that way in the show, which I know is why a lot of people have. So I'm really interested to see in the books if it does go the same way, if we get a little bit more of Jaime's emotions, and so we get to see if that is something he takes in, because he does say none of that matters. But it could just be it could just be him saying none of that matters because he's trying to console her in this moment, and not just it doesn't matter. It's just you and I. You are the only people that matter.
Yeah, I remember was it last season, right, where we all were kind of wondering whether she actually had a baby, or was she just saying that to kind of manipulate him because she knew how she could use that against him or keep him near. But when he is with Brienne and he's thinking about. I actually have to make a correction. Last week, I kind of thought he was going to see Cersei and knew she was going to use. He was going back to be on the winning side, but then I thought, he doesn't actually know that she's using all of those people as like a shield. So when he gets there, I thought, well, actually, he could have maybe then gone up and confronted her and said, "This is not right. Escape with me," all that kind of stuff. So I don't think he knew what her plans were. He was just going back to be with his sister and to stay on her side. And as you say, if there's a baby involved, this is the chance that he has to kind of actually be the father that he never could be, really. So you can see why he would want to go back. I wish they would have brought that part of it up a little bit more, and it wasn't just the Cersei piece. But yeah, I don't know. And actually, we have a Raven later on about Euron's, that whole confrontation between Tyrion and Cersei, and why Euron didn't pick up on him being the father type of thing, or not being the father. So yeah. Okay, I do have a quick. I'm gonna kind of summarize this because it's a bit long. Talking about the bells. This is kind of a rebuttal to Dany and Jaime's arc of hate. So we have Cole here. Let me pull this up. Let's see. Cole says, "Just needed to get some stuff off my chest and say my opinion on this incredible episode that people keep tearing apart. Mainly, I want to talk about Dany and Jaime and the complaints against them. Yeah, so he's going to try to keep this brief, and I will too. Let's see here. It's long. Danny. Everyone seems to agree that Danny's descent to madness was rushed and poorly executed on the writer's part, and I can understand the argument and have no gripe with it, but I disagree. I could go into details on all the signs that showed her capability to be merciless and the possibility that she could become mad. But more and more people are becoming aware and open to these points. So I'll focus on the rushed argument. However, I want to point out that she has killed innocent people before. While definitely not the same as thousands of women and children, she burnt alive a high lord and marine for which she had no personal beef with and no evidence of any crimes, while seeming to enjoy this display of power. And the same can be said for the crucifying of the masters, of which some were fighting against the same thing she was, as we found out later. So don't tell me she's only killed bad people. Okay. In my opinion, things fell into place beautifully for Dany to make this turn. All of her loss created an emptiness in which she had never felt. The one thing she had fought for her entire life ended up not being hers to claim, and she lost almost all of her closest advisors, quote, children and friends, aside from Tyrion, who she no longer trusts, and Grey Worm, who is going mad himself at this point. Not to mention these deaths have happened in front of her eyes. We can see these things affecting her, and it's clear that she is slowly losing herself. Okay, let me move on down here. I believe it was her emptiness after she had won that broke her, and I truly don't understand why is it so bad. What is so bad about her just snapping? It has been referenced over and over again how madness is in her bloodline. I know people thought she should have just flown to the Red Keep, but this wouldn't have been a true display of madness. So which is clearly what they were going for. And they do talk about, in the show, the flipping of the coin and the Targaryen blood and all of that good stuff. So there's that. Let me move on to the Jaime arc here. Jaime's final acts were not out of character at all. He always loved Cersei, and pretty much every bad thing that he's done was for her. Not every arc is a redemption arc. The brilliance of the show is the human heart and character, and the illustration of how events change people, and the inner battle people have with themselves. Jaime always struggled with who he is. I think of it like a drug addict, who got clean but then relapsed. Sometimes life is tragic, and so Jaime kind of reverting back after all his positive progression, in my opinion, is extremely impactful as a viewer. Brienne helped Jaime become a better person, and yes, he loved her, but this wasn't enough to make him lose his love for Cersei, which was always more powerful. I would have liked seeing him kill her, but after some digestion, I actually think this ending for him is more Gurm-esque, and it makes perfect sense. So I'll leave it that there. There's had a lot more, but I think that's the kind of gist of his thoughts. And that, so we got a little bit on Dany and laying some of the foundation for why she would become the Mad Queen. And I think a lot of people's gripes are it just happens too fast, or maybe those references are too subtle, because there's a lot of other good things that she's doing. And you hear Tyrion saying that he believes in her, and that Tyrion's a character that we've grown to love and believe in from the beginning and get behind, and then he, is exalting Dany, and so it's hard to see all those, shortcomings and faults, I guess, or those cracks in Dany, because you have someone like Tyrion in front of her that's masking all of that. So there's that, and then the Jaime piece we talked about there as well. So. Mm-hmm. All right, so that was from Cole. I just want to get those thoughts out there. I'm sure we'll have some thoughts in the Facebook group on that as well. All right, let's move on here, Sir Matt. We still got quite a few to cover.
We do, yeah. So let's just read some of these here. So is this the one from Sir David? Sir David?
Yeah, Sir David. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi. Just want to say I enjoy your podcast. I enjoy listening to your thoughts and reflections and of the show and characters, and mostly I enjoy that you aren't negative like other commentators out there. Well, not in today's episode. With that being said, I have a couple of comments. The first one being around Cersei and Euron Greyjoy. When Tyrion pleaded to Cersei to surrender, he mentioned her pregnancy, and it didn't seem to raise any concerns with Euron. I thought that was peculiar. Then Euron squares off with Jaime in the Bells episode, and he told Jaime, I hooked up with the queen. I wish Euron had told Jaime, and I put a prince in her belly, and Jaime should have told Euron that the baby belonged to him. It would have been great to see Euron realize that Cersei was manipulating him all along right before he dies. My second comment is in the defense of Daenerys' switch of character. When you think about it, the only people Daenerys had to trust were Grey Worm and Missandei. And at one point she believed she could trust Jorah, but then she discovered she couldn't. She was betrayed by her handmaid Dora in Karth. She is given bad advice by Tyrion and questions his loyalty. She questions Varys' loyalty, and now she feels betrayed by Jon and Sansa. She only had Missandei and Grey Worm to trust, and before she is beheaded, Missandei tells her Dracarys, and all Grey Worm knows is violence. This is what he told Missandei. And that's all Dany has to secure her place in Westeros. It was very heartbreaking, but for every victory that Dany has had, she has known betrayal and disappointed by her closest advisors as well. She has her final actions, so her final action to set King's Landing on fire makes sense. Like an innocent child who violently takes away one toy from another child, Dany secured her place in the world. And at this point, I have no predictions for the final episode. It's all up in the air. I look forward to hearing your predictions and final thoughts on the last episode. Cheers, Sir David.
Wow. I was actually, as you were reading that, and I'm thinking through this, her conquering of Essos versus her conquering of Westeros, they're completely different, because I think what she's fighting in Essos is different than what she's fighting in Westeros. She's fighting like slavery and different things over there, and the evil just seems to be more in our face, I guess. And I don't know. Even though, she kills a bunch of innocents here, it's this really twisted way of looking at a society, I guess, that's gone so far bad that it just needs Thanos. You know what I mean?
Essentially.
Use, right? I mean, so I don't know. Maybe that was part of it. It just there's some commentary there on the political setup or the corruption, I guess, that's in everyone. That this it's just so festering. It's such a it just needs to be a wound that needs to be completely gutted, cleaned out, cut, clean, rinsed, and everything, and just start over. Maybe that's sort of the idea. But yeah, it's heartbreaking to watch, because we love Dany so much and we think there's a better way to do it, and we want people to love her, but she's a foreigner to them. So that's sort of what she is fighting against, and that's sort of why when she loses her advisors and those people who kind of, she has nothing. She has her dragon, and that is it. She is alone. She's got Jon half-heartedly standing there, but I mean, she feels like she's losing him to Sansa and Arya. So I really feel for her. So, anyways, yeah, thanks, Sir David.
Right,
good thoughts there. Enjoyed that.
Okay, I'll let you read this next one, Sir Ezra.
Yeah, this is from Lady Amy of House. How do we say her name? Gauss, I think.
Goose. Yeah. Goose.
Lady Amy, you won
our
the trivia, so make sure you hit us up. Yeah, trivia winner, mother of wildlings. Here we go. Good day, sirs. I needed to send a raven many, many times after episode 5, and burned a few in the process. I must say, I feel like a minority in loving this season. All of the episodes we have had in the past 10 years, we are watching the TV series that has impacted, inspired, and created such spirited discussion, dedication, and debate that I feel like we cannot not champion it. I refuse to let go of my passion for it, and I will not feel bad for not being disappointed any longer. Here we go. Somebody's getting fired up here, staying positive. When episode 6 is done, that is when I can make my final judgments, similar to what Sir Matt has said. I am not a writer, nor do I play one on TV, so I can only imagine what they go through to get to where they are. I commend them for doing what they see fit and allowing us to go along for the ride. In episode 5, one of my biggest takeaways was Cersei's death. So many people have hated it. They wanted something better, and they wanted it to be by the hand of one of our heroes. First of all, we need to stop calling characters in this story and series hero or villain. They all have character traits in both categories, and therefore we cannot simply place them in one box. Cersei was a terrible person for sure. She had made decisions that seemed irrational and fueled by something something more than hate and rage. She is, however, motivated by her family and children and being a mom. I hate even saying this. I can almost relate. I would do something fierce for my boys. Taking her situations and plot lines and background, I can almost is a key word here, understand why she did the things she did. But, taking away an honorable death by the hand of someone, and instead having her cower in the dragon room in sheer panic and being crushed by the castle that wasn't really hers to begin with was poetic. What would she have done if someone came at her with a sword, a knife? Fight? Have we ever seen her physically in combat with anyone? No. She is a mental fighter and a master manipulator. Seeing her break down and seeing that emotion was perfect for me. Perfect, I say. For episode 6, I have saved this bold theory reveal until now just for this Raven. I want to see Tyrion take the throne, and here is how I see it happening. Dany will not survive now. She will die for her decisions and burning the city. Arya will see to that. Jon does not want the throne, and I really, really cannot see him sitting there. That would just feel so wrong and out of character. He will finally go north. Where? Maybe Winterfell, maybe further, but he will not stay. Sansa and Tyrion will come to an agreement between the north and the south. Sansa is right where she should be, and the only person I can see ruling King's Landing with justice and peace and fairness is Tyrion. I feel we were set up with that notion as he championed for the surrender via the bells. Notice the title, right? He is capable and has the knowledge to rule, and it would make so much sense for him to take the throne. Serving as the hand of the king, the master of coin, and now the hand of the queen, has conditioned him to get right up there and sit with power and dignity. It is bold, but man, I have felt this for ages now, and it feels good to get it out there. Love the podcast, love the Facebook group, and I sincerely appreciate your patrons and discussions. Thank you, Lady Amy. Awesome. I mean, that's... Now, Lady Amy, what people are going to say is, that sounds like a nice ending. That sounds real nice, doesn't it? Maybe the bitterness is that Dany, dies.
Yeah.
And all of that with Arya.
Mm-hmm.
So... But, interesting. I think Sansa and Tyrion do make it, and there's going to be something between those two that they're going to have to figure out how to maybe rule the Seven Kingdoms or not rule them or split them up or what have you. But, I think they'll be there in the end. And I kind of agree. I don't want to see Jon sitting on the Iron Throne. That's not something I'm really interested in. So
it's not something it's not something Jon's interested in. I would still like the idea of somebody who's been vying for it taking it.
Sure. Yeah.
If there even is an Iron Throne.
Right. Yeah, we don't. Was it destroyed? Are they going to walk up to it and see it destroyed? I mean, what's going on with the throne? So, all right. Well, let's keep. Should we keep kind of plowing through here?
Yeah, I think we have one here from Lady Shannon from Ontario, Canada. Here. Sirs, Matt, and Ezra, loving the podcast as always. After the most recent episode, I have a lot of things about Season 8, but let's focus on Daenerys. A lot of thoughts. I want to start off by saying that I fully support the Mad Queen storyline. There has been setup for it, and it fits well in Dany's arc for her to end up becoming the kind of villain/tyrant she once sought to overthrow. That being said, I'm not thrilled with how the show has handled her transition into madness, specifically in Season 8. As many other people have said, a lot of the storylines in this season feel very rushed. Dany's is one of them. At the end of Episode 4, Daenerys was paranoid about Jon and rightfully super pissed about the death of Missandei and Rhaegal. The anger is directed at Cersei, the person responsible for those losses. Instead of taking the opportunity to kill Cersei and get revenge, she decides to attack the people of King's Landing and nearly lets Cersei escape. At this point, there was next to no reason for Dany to take the path she chose. She has spent much of her life fighting to protect the sort of people she chose to slaughter. I've seen people reference Dany's past actions as support for her current madness, but those examples don't really hold up. Mira Mazdur, Pyat Peri, the slave masters of Astapor and Meereen, the Harpies, the Khals and Vaes Dothrak, the Lannister army, those were all enemies who actively threatened her rule and the better world she wanted to create.
Mm-hmm.
She fought to give better lives to common people who have lived under the tyranny of various rulers. That's why she wants to break the wheel to stop it from crushing those on the ground. I understand her madness is ironic because it contradicts all of these things, but the transition wasn't given enough time to develop naturally. She felt on the outside from the moment she went north, but the paranoia didn't really start until about episode 3 when she learns of Jon's parentage. Well, she learns of Jon's parentage in episode 2.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah.
Right, yeah. The episodes are long, but there was still only 2 or so episodes to develop such a huge plot point. Not even the Mad King Aerys went crazy this quickly. It took years for him to get from paranoia about his advisors and allies to burn them all. Sure, he did suffer the losses that Dany did, but she'd suffered many losses in her life already and used that pain to destroy her enemies with fire and blood. The people of King's Landing were not her enemy. There's been so many amazing things in these last 5 episodes, that I really want to love every moment of it, but I'm having a hard time because of things like this. It feels like important things are being pushed aside to focus on the less significant, like Dane Bowl, Euron versus Jaime, and Clegane Bowl. Just my opinion, so feel free to disagree. Lady Shannon, Ontario, Canada, winter is finally over.
Yeah. I want to say quickly, Lady Shannon, I like the way we set this up because we read a lot of people who said that we can see how the turn works, we can see the groundwork that was laid, and then Lady Shannon also points out that, well, those people were enemies. You know, and the hard part about what's happening with King's Landing is that they're super innocent. So, you get it. It just comes down to, I think it goes back to what you wanted to see, what you expected to see, what makes sense. Could you have set this up better? And if you had more time, drawn this out and really shown her isolated and things like that, and trying to do what was right, but it wasn't working, and everything she tried in Essos, if we would have had the time, doesn't work, and so she's now over here playing the air quote Game of Thrones, and she doesn't want to play. She's not. It's not how she won in Essos, and so. Yeah, I don't know. I like this, though. I like the different perspective. So, okay, so thanks, Lady Shannon. Let's move on. We have Sir David the Blacksmith of House Firewood. Wow. Whose words are, work smart, work hard. I like it. Here we go. I am truly baffled. How are so many people surprised by what Dany did in the last episode? They've been building up They've been building up to that from the very beginning. Don't get me wrong, she's done incredibly good things, freeing slaves and so on, but this part of her persona has been growing over time. She has been laser focused on winning the Iron Throne from day one and has been crystal clear that she will let nothing and no one stand in her way. She's had enough bad things happen to her to push Gandhi over the edge. Physical abuse, children killed, friends killed, numerous betrayals, you name it. This is who she is. Dany doesn't just defeat her enemies, she kills them, usually in horribly gruesome ways, and with absolutely no sign of regret. This is the most predictable plot twist of all time. How on earth can so many people be surprised by it? They telegraphed this so much, Samuel Morse rose up from his grave to file a lawsuit. Okay. So I mean, this is interesting. It's neat, because you have there Lady Shannon. Now we've got Sir David. People going back and forth on Dany's turn on this madness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people say. I mean, I think there has been plenty of foresight into this, and I think there has been plenty of hints that it was going to happen. But again, it just they've been small. They haven't been big moments. Like Jon, the potential for Jon being Azor Ahai has been big. I mean, I don't want to say from the get-go, but from about the time Melisandre shows up. We start learning about his, this warrior of light and things, and it's probably not Stannis, and it's somebody else, and there's definitely a lot of hints about it. And certainly Jon's parentage has always been something, and so there's always been something bigger is going to happen with Jon.
Yeah.
Arya, the Arya potentially being Azor Ahai, the one to defeat the Night King. Yeah, there's been hints throughout the series. Again, but I think I completely see people's arguments for it being rushed. I'm with this where I think there have been hints of Dany, but it does feel quite quick in this last season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, that's what we talked about earlier. I think that's people's issue, is just that it's been quick.
Right. Sure. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on here. We've got Lord Blue Stingray. I like that. So here we go. Probably related to some of the. I mean, didn't House Manderley have like a merman?
Yes.
Right on their sigil. Yeah. So some of these seafaring lords and ladies. I've always thought that the Lannister arc is the most compelling. 3 kids trying to do the most or make the most of their situation. Cersei was married to Robert, was underestimated for being a woman, can't control her son, loses her children, is humiliated in front of a city, etc., but eventually defeats her enemies. Dany was pretty much, or has pretty much been saying, quote, bend the knee forever. Her only motivation being power. Her family lost the kingdom, but somehow she thinks she deserves the throne because ... dragons. She lacks true empathy, must be convinced to show mercy, and just killed innocent children. At worst, Cersei killed her actual enemies at the Sept. She executed a prisoner of war, Missandei, a declared enemy of the queen and an advisor to the usurper that wished the death of a city. All right. This is literally at the same level as Dany killing Varys. So why do so many want to give Dany a pass and hate Cersei? ? She killed more children, innocents, etc. than any other character. ...
Well, I think the easiest thing is that it's because
her treatment of
it also just happened. I mean, Dany just destroyed this city, so we're only really a week into Dany
processing.
Really, I mean, really going off the deep end and killing tons of people. Yeah, Cersei has been like this the entire series. So I think that's why it's easier.
The hatred's been building,
right? It's been building
for so
over,
long,
over seasons or books. Whereas Dany just really went off the deep end this last episode.
Yeah, it is crazy. She's definitely not. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to hate her. As this Raven kind of indicates, she does things because she loves her family, and it's all for family. It's all for love of her children and things like that. And Dany, yeah, I mean, she also, though, I can feel for her too. She's had everything taken from her, wants to come back and kind of have everyone bend the knee, and that's just what that's what she knows. I mean, it is known, right? She's the dragon. She's meant to come back and rule these 7 kingdoms. It was taken from her family, and this is laid on her shoulders. So I see where she's coming from as well. Yeah, so many people want to give Dany a pass and hate Cersei. Yeah, she has. I mean, Dany's also done a lot of things, but as let me go back up here. Who was that? Lady Shannon was kind of pointing out that she had done those things also in times of war and to people who she thought were enemies and things like that, or who stood in her way,
right?
In some regard. And if she wouldn't have attacked them, they would have attacked her, type of thing, or she struck first and what have you. Now, the situation with these innocent children is a little different here.
Well, I mean, Dany does kill. Well, through process of being the mother of dragons, kills an innocent child. Remember when she's ruling,
Sure.
and we see the guy bring in his
The herder, yeah, like the sheep
right,
herder or whatever.
he brings in his child, and Dany's horrified. I mean, you can tell she feels horrible. Whereas Cersei has, and has Robert Baratheon's kids killed, his bastards. Let's go after him. So I mean, there's a huge difference.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think people forget about that sometimes. Yeah, the other thing is that I think Cersei just masks it really well, and she's played the game a lot longer, and we see more raw emotion, and I think Dany seems more transparent to us, and Cersei, it's kind of hard to see the things that maybe Tyrion and Jaime do see in her because they are family. So I that's that other layer that's tough, and that's neat, I guess, about the story is to kind of pick through that and truly see who these characters are and what their motivations are and get down to their core. And you find it's pretty muddled. It's not just black and white.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
All right. Well, I mean, that was kind of the end of the Ravens there.
That's kind of the end of the Ravens. We have a couple predictions here, and then Sir Ezra and I are going to give our final bold predictions.
Yeah. Okay. So we have one more here. This is. We've got two prediction Ravens here. So we've got Sir Gabe sent us one. Says, "Hey guys, I'm a new listener to the podcast this season and have loved listening to everyone's predictions. Here are some of my own thoughts. Because they spent so much time focusing on Arya in episode 5 and putting her directly in the line of fire, I feel that was their way of setting up her motivation to get rid of Dany. What about the possibility of Arya killing Dany and taking her face? She can rule with Gendry by her side. Or she can relinquish the throne to a Stark to avoid any backlash from the Dothraki or the Unsullied if Dany is actually killed before their eyes." Wow. How would she do it, though? Sansa would have to be involved. The killing of Littlefinger showed us what those two are capable of when they work together. Okay, so we have a few or scenarios. We have 4 or 5. Or Bran can look back in time and affect any number of moments from this season, like he affected Hodor's past. Or Davos could be the one to kill Dany. He never got this chance to kill Melisandre for what she did to an innocent girl. Think of what he would want to do to someone for killing hundreds of innocent children. He's very connected to Flea Bottom and things. ... Or Jon can continue to honor Dany as his queen right up until the point he becomes the next Jaime and earns the nickname Queenslayer. Or Yara, hearing about Jon through Varys' note, could have a scorpion on her boat and slay Drogon. After all, she never got the chance to kill Euron. I feel like she needs to be a part of some of the storyline. Or one final possibility, we see Jaime grab a sword when running from King's Landing, which means he may have left his sword in Winterfell. Maybe the 2 swords made from ice will be wielded by 2 characters who will kill Dany. Don't forget who Brienne is loyal to and who killed Jaime. Interesting. So basically, Brienne might take the sword, might combine ice and come back and kill Dany. Because she's loyal to Sansa, and then she also loved Jaime. So many possibilities. It's anyone's game. Awesome. All right.
Okay.
We also have one more. I'll just finish this out here, Sir Matt. We've got Oz of Castle Alvadrez. Castle Alvadrez. Yeah. Sweet. Hey, guys, I have a plot twist. I believe Dany, quote, Queen of Ashes, flew to Winterfell prior to lighting up King's Landing and burned Winterfell because of Sansa's betrayal. So Arya and Jon get word of it and go after Dany. Jon and Grey Worm are going to have the ultimate battle. Going to have an ultimate battle. Arya tries to kill Dany, and Drogon melts everyone except Jon. Jon comes out of the flames as Azor Ahai and cleans house. All right, cool. Azor Ahai's back. It's back, Sir Matt. I mean, here at the end. People still thinking about it. I love it. So,
okay.
All right, wait. Let's get into our own bold predictions here, and then we'll kind of wrap this up.
I'll let you go first, Sir Ezra.
Wow. I mean, okay.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a reset.
Damn, that's what I was going to say.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Damn it. I should have went first.
I'm sorry. I don't. I mean, we've got that petition out there for a rewrite, and I think the showrunners have. I think they're way ahead of you. That's what I was gonna say. That's why I read that article, the CNN article at the top of the show, because it's like, oh, that's funny. That's funny because the show writers are actually going to rewrite the show. They are going to go back.
Where do you think it's going to happen? Where do you think it's going to take place?
Huh. That's interesting. Because you don't have time to unless they show us glimpses of just different crazy things happening. I kind of hope something like we go back to the Night King, which would be crazy to say. That's just because I'm making a bold prediction. It's probably more likely. And I think you've. Well, I'll let you kind of. Where do you think?
I brought this up before. Is when the moment where Bran says it's your decision about telling Sansa.
Yeah.
And I think if it goes back, what happens if he doesn't tell Sansa?
Right.
If they were to go this route,
that be the love?
They probably won't, but.
Could that be the love that keeps the kingdom together? And maybe that's all she needs. It's just Jon's love, and it's a song of ice and fire. Mm-hmm. And when that works out perfectly, then we can set everything right. If she just had, because she does, she seems to really love him, and that she is pouring herself. Just she wants that. She wants to be able to rule here. And gosh, if he could just get past the fact that she's his aunt, and if he could just love her, it might be okay. Maybe they go back and they don't tell Jon or something, or it's never said to him. Who knows? But I think there's going to be some type of reset that Bran will be involved. I just don't think I can't see George having a character like this. Or we don't know, though. I mean, I haven't seen George do the Hodor thing, so I don't know how that's all going to play out or what his powers and abilities will really be. So it will be interesting to see what they do with Bran at the end, because he's still there, and I feel like something has to be done with Bran. It all comes down to him.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll still give one. Boy. And change it up. There will be no Iron Throne by the end of next episode.
Okay.
It will whether let's say Drogon melts it or they something, there will be no centralized seat of power in Westeros. It will be either split up into individual kingdoms or a democratic ruler or something, but there will be no more kings.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I like it. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
All
right. Well, we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Season 8, Episode 6, the final episode of Game of Thrones. We'll be giving our review and initial reaction.
I mean, it's over, guys. So get ready. It's going to be emotional, Sir Matt. We've been covering it for years, and it's actually going to be emotional, I feel like. So It has been so far, but to have it come to an end is wild. Mm-hmm. So, all right. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a few days, and remember, we still have the books.